Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed, high atop the Edwards Plateau. And so, we've had an eventful couple of weeks.
Yep.
And this week, we decided to take a break with Ben. He wanted this week off. So we're just doing a normal Snake Bros episode this week, but I think we are going to be resuming those episodes with him next week. At least one more, maybe more than that. Don't know. We're just kind of
playing it by ear,
taking it one episode at a time. So yeah, other stuff that happened. Our server went down.
Yes.
And was down pretty much almost 24 hours before I was able to get it fixed. So we had to migrate everything to a new server and then make sure that was all working, and then transfer the domain. So we did that, and now it looks like we're gonna have to do it again because we basically have to do it again. What happened that day didn't turn out to be the right thing to do, so probably gonna have to do it one more time.
But hopefully it won't be down for long.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to
be down for long. Yeah. Next time it'll just be however long it takes the domain to retarget.
Switch over, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happened was Laura had the baby.
That's right.
Which was on Thursday, I guess. We left in the middle of the night on Wednesday. I don't know. It's all running together. I guess, yeah, it would have been Wednesday, which would have... We were going to do the show, and then we were like, well, let's push it back to Thursday. And then I was in the hospital we were all in the hospital for more than 24 hours. Everything went great.
Yep.
Everything's awesome. And you've got a niece.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Lila May.
I'm afraid
to touch her. Super chill.
Yeah. She's very,
real cool,
very,
calm.
very relaxed, unlike the previous one.
Yeah. So that's been great. And, but yeah, it's the weekend, kind of taking it easy, catching up on some sleep, working out, getting the baby,
getting the schedule
nestled in to the home
out, yeah.
situation. So I got a lot of sleep this afternoon, and I was like, hey, bro, let's podcast.
Yeah. So we actually were going to podcast on Wednesday this week.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
And then on the way home, Kyle was like, hey, Laura says, can you guys do it tomorrow? And we were both like, all right. But we were also both thinking it might not happen.
That's right. That was my first thought.
And it didn't. So, which is fine, and I wasn't even sure. I was like, well, it's not a big deal. We can skip a week, or I could do a little snake bites or something. But Kyle was at the hospital, and he's like, nope, we're coming home tomorrow night, and we should do one. So, yeah. So here we are.
I was itching to talk about the Shamir.
Yeah, we got the Shamir. But yeah, the other thing I was thinking of was when our server went down, I was thinking, the podcasts are down. We got a podcaster down. That was like, I wake up and my phone is exploding with all these messages. Can't download the show. And Kyle's like, shit, I think your server's down. Yep, podcasts are down.
Yep.
So yeah, we have a whole bunch of different stuff tonight. Kyle and I have been thinking about the Shamir in relation to, the stuff we've been doing with Ben. And I think it was after the show last week, right? Yeah. So after we were done with Ben and Chuck last week, after we were finished recording the show and we basically stopped the recording, we were all kind of hanging out afterwards talking about it. And Kyle and I were just like, guys, Shamir, and they're like, huh? We're like, you guys haven't heard the legend of the Shamir? So we kind of went into it, and then Kyle afterwards was like, dude, we should do a show on whatever we can find on this. So
yeah, it's probably not enough for a whole show. But we've got listener communications, we've got some other stories, and we were just we'll do the listener stuff, and then we'll jump into whatever. Who knows how long it could go?
Yeah,
might be one segment.
Yeah,
but there's just interesting stuff.
Yeah,
it's strange.
Yeah. And then if we have extra time, you and I have been talking a lot about Elastic Universe.
That's
so
right.
Maybe we could go through some of that too.
Yeah.
If there's time after doing the Shamir stuff.
See,
yeah.
We do the planning for the show during the show.
Yeah, we're figuring this out right now. All right, but let's go ahead and do the Space Weather News. From spaceweather.com, where we get all our space weather news. Geomagnetic storm watch. NOAA forecasters say that minor G1 class geomagnetic storms are possible on February 1st and 2nd when a solar wind stream hits Earth's magnetic field. The gaseous material is flowing from a southern hole in the sun's atmosphere. Solar wind speeds could jump to 600 plus kilometers per second when the stream arrives, sparking bright Arctic auroras. Also, Sirius is pulsing with color. There is something strange about Sirius. The brightest star in the sky is pulsing with color. So to the naked eye, Sirius looks pale blue, almost white. But if you photograph it with a camera using very short exposure times, Sirius will reveal its true colors, lots of them. So basically the story here is that a photographer in Denmark did this experiment. The first picture he took was a half a second shutter speed. And then he took 15 other pictures with 1/500th of a second shutter speed. Right? And so he ends up with this. There's the half a second one, and these are all the 500 ones. Every one of them is a different color.
Wow.
Blues and greens and yellows and oranges and purples, and it's really cool. And so astronomers, they say, call this phenomena scintillation. It is caused by thermal irregularities in Earth's atmosphere. Packets of relatively warm and cool air act like prisms, spreading starlight into rainbow colors. And when these packets drift in front of Sirius, voila, you have colors. So the reason the first exposure looks white is because a half a second is long enough to average many fluctuating colors together.
Yeah.
Multiple packets of air drift by during that time. The shorter snapshots, however, capture individual packets, and they look like tiny prismatic supernova explosions. Really cool.
That is cool.
All stars scintillate, but Sirius does so most flamboyantly because of its extreme brightness. See this for yourself. Step outside this evening, an hour or so after sunset, and look east for Sirius near the feet of Orion. Wow. The lower it is, the more it scintillates, and you may be able to see the colors, no camera required.
So when planets are like brighter than the brightest stars, but is it because they're already reflecting the light?
Yeah, I think
and so the light is taking on more of the colors of the reflection, rather than the direct light being generated.
Yeah, because the light the planets are reflecting is already
the planets have already absorbed a bunch of colors.
Yeah,
and they're already
Sirius is sending out pure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Not pure. I mean, it's across the spectrum, the known spectrum.
Yeah, that's how you can divide it up into all the different colors. That's always I've always been intrigued by that because, you know, the white.
Intrigued by what?
The ability, like the white light is like a complex wave.
Yeah.
Containing all these other. Okay, so when you take the prism and you
it's
scatter
like
the light, you divide the complex waveform up into its component simple waves, right? Mm-hmm. And each one of those simplified waves is a specific frequency range, which is what gives you the color.
Right.
So
white light is like noise in terms of sound.
Yeah, it's like all these it's noise. Exactly.
And then the prism will separate it out into separate notes. Or
right.
Something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the prism is it's a different medium, right? And it's at an angle to the direction of the oncoming light.
Yeah.
Because the wave front of the light is curved, like if you imagine rings going out into water, they're curved.
Yeah.
When they enter the angled face, the part of the curve that enters the face of the new medium first starts to speed up.
Yeah. And it separates it out.
And so it sends it a different direction, right? And so if you have a series of prisms with all these different angles, it speeds up the light at different rates.
Yeah.
Or turns it at different angles, basically. Which is just, I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird.
The fact that results in separating it out based on frequency is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird. I need to look back into it some more, but yeah, that's why they say it bends the light. The prism bends the light.
Yeah, and doesn't it have to do with those different frequencies being different frequencies that makes them show up when it hits the prism? Isn't that part of it? Like the reason it separates it is because they're all contained in there, and they get bent at a little bit slightly different. That's why the prism will give you a rainbow across the wall with a point source of light, because all that light goes in and then gets split up and makes a band
based on frequency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it's all traveling at the same speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
But
each one has a different wavelength that
right.
I don't know.
It has a different.
Don't ask me. I'm not an optical physicist.
I know. I'm just saying it's fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. Current conditions. Solar wind speed is it seems low, 305.1 kilometers per second, and the density is a relatively high 10.4 protons per cubic centimeter. So yeah, didn't we decide that this makes sense? Like that if you have wind speed really high, the density is going to be lower because they're. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because the source is what's making the density. But a lower speed seems like you'd have more stuff around, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Still haven't figured all this stuff out. Sunspot number right now is 0. We're in a 2-day long spotless stretch.
Yeah, we still need to reach out to this guy and get him to come on the show and tell us what all this means.
Yeah. Neutron counts today is 8.8% plus above the space age average. And the KP index is quiet at 0. And the 24-hour max for the KP is 1, which is still quiet.
Still waiting for the prediction to come true of the most active solar period.
Well, it takes it a while to ramp up.
Yeah.
So. Okay, that's the space weather news.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. And I have the emails and I have this story.
Quick Venus update.
Oh, yeah.
They're studying a giant crater on Venus. I think I wish I had this. I had the story bookmarked, but I went through and cleaned stuff out, and I accidentally deleted it. But it's a really large crater. It's many, many miles across. I don't remember the number. The biggest one, I guess, that they know of. And based on the studies of that crater and the rings that are forming out, where they're able to make judgments on the thickness of the lithosphere because of how it liquefied or whatever when it was hit.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly thick. Really, really, really thick. Which suggests that like the volcanism idea is not, or tectonic plates and all that kind of stuff. It's like one giant plate.
Yeah, it's one plate.
And so now they're saying, well, it must have, I guess the idea is that it had to have been there for a really long time to get
to cool that much.
And get a lithosphere that thick. So I don't know. How does it have a young surface? Yeah, exactly. I know, but it's weird, right? Because it has this young surface that they were thinking, well, it must be all this volcanism and earthquakes and stuff. And now they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
it's got
doesn't have any plates.
Thick crust.
Thick crust. Huh.
So still confusing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Emails?
Yeah.
Okay. First one's from Roddy the Mammal. He says, a question, a business idea, and an observation.
Okay.
Dear Ophidian siblings, as I sit here by the fire, quill in opposable thumbed paw, listening to my favorite limbless reptilian podcast, I ponder your words of wisdom, punctuated with random but welcomed gleeful gigglings and sibling snickerings. And I am once again inspired to expand my level of intelligence by asking a question. If it is claimed that objects gain mass with speed, and since I live a fairly sedentary existence, why do I weigh so much? Regarding the latest episode on stellar nucleosynthesis and radiometric dating, fascinating and informative. In fact, your presentation was almost understandable. Kind of makes me wish I hadn't slept through my high school science classes. On the plus side, listening to all the scientific knowledge made me aware of a fantastic business opportunity. With scientists doing all those lonely lab hours and repeatable experiments, and forlorn field forays and endless hours of digging, there is little time for socializing, friendship, and yes, love. So, to get these isolated geeks and nerds out into the world, to get them meeting and greeting each other, and to get them to falling in love and breeding the next generation of eggheads, I propose we create a social media meeting website just for scientific scholars, radiocarbondating.com. We could get Harrison Ford and Karen Allen as spokesmodels. What do you think? Sounds good? Think it over and have your people call my people. In conclusion, I'd like to say that this is the smartest podcast I listen to next to Cosmographia, which might not be saying much, as most of the podcasts I listen to are about comic books and Bigfoot. But not My Little Pony. That one was totally accidental. And now you'll have to excuse me as my feline companion is sitting across from me, her amber glare reminding me that her ancestors once hunted my ancestors, and kibble is required to forestall any repeat of such past evolutionary enactments. Endothermically yours, Roddy the Mammal.
Radiocarbondating.com. Genius. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sorry you didn't understand the nucleosynthesis episode. I didn't understand most of it either.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so. Okay, next one is also from Roddy. He says this is an addendum. Addendum, Secret Life of Trees, from Roddy the Mammal.
Uh-huh.
Dear Ophidian siblings, specifically Kyle, your talk on the secret life of trees with their neural networking communication made me wonder if, like jellyfish, forests are but a single colony organism that, due to its size relative to humans, is mistaken for a collection of separate individuals. There does appear to be evidence that plants have a form of sentience that is far more advanced and more alien than suspected by animal-based and biased paradigms would suggest. Food for thought. Well, more like a snack for thought. Thank you in advance, Roddy the Mammal.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wonder about that myself.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a man of war. It's actually a colony. You know, it looks like a jellyfish. I mean, you think it's a jellyfish, but it's like a colony, right?
Yes.
It's a whole bunch
Like
of different
bees.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're all different.
Right.
You know, bees, like there are like a few different types, but this is a colony of many different types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this whole structure, and if you look really closely at them, you see that they've got this dome, and there's like this weird forest in there, and then it's got all the roots hanging down that get all the food, and it kind of floats around in the ocean, right? So it's like, are actual forests like those? They don't move. I mean, I guess they do over long periods of time if the ground is shifting, but
Yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, jellyfish don't really move. They just happen to live in a medium that's.
Yeah, well, some of them do, like actual jellyfish.
Yeah,
can propel,
that's true.
Can propel themselves, but these things like have a dome with a sail, and they float. You know.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're sort of compartmentalizing it. You know, we're like, oh, this is fungus.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's a specific.
It's like
one thing,
it
and-
may be actually a single
Yeah, it's just yeah. That's the neural
symbiotic
network.
organism. Yeah. Yeah.
It's you think the same thing. Like you what was that that movie Inner Space or whatever? Shrink down and get in a little machine and go
Yeah.
inside the human body, and there's
Yeah.
just all these different crazy things happening.
Yeah.
Things fighting each other and killing each other, and
Yep. Inner Space and Osmosis Jones were both like that.
Osmosis Jones. That's right.
Osmosis Jones was great. He fights that super virus with the cold pill.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's just like all these different life forms all having their own little jobs and doing their own little things, and it's
Yeah.
actually really all together making one thing. I mean, you could ask the same question about all of life,
Yeah.
and we're just one small piece of that as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, are we all basically just very complicated symbiotic structures?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess. Right? Yes, the answer is basically like all complex life forms have symbiosis with many different things. You know, you have gut flora and stuff like skin bacteria that live on you that help you out. So, but I don't know. The idea that a whole forest is actually just one thing is really cool.
Yeah, it is.
The trees are like the hairs. It's the hair.
Yeah. The grass is the fuzzies.
That's right. Okay. Let's see. This one's from Karen. Yeah. It's called This is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius. Hi, Kyle and Russ. My path, Graham Hancock to Randall Carlson to snakes. I enjoy Cosmographia and signed up for Contact at the Cabin 2020 and am hopeful we can make it to the Scablands in May without further delay.
Awesome.
I decided to give you a listen starting with the Dr. Chandra interview in episode 141 that you mentioned on Cosmographia, and then I went all the way back to episode 2, and I am now at episode 172.
Wow.
In your recent episode 168, there was discussion about the golden calf worship and how Moses came down and shut all that down as they were in a new processional age. This allegorical way of thinking about this biblical tale is not a new concept for me or your show, but for whatever reason, this recent comment on the story triggered my thinking. There are myths and tales and legends that discuss twins, bulls, rams, and fish that would represent the transitions from the age of Gemini to Taurus to Aries to Pisces, respectively. Mm-hmm. As we are now the age of Aquarius, it begs the question, where are the myths, legends, and tales that are forming around the water bearer? It does seem to me that if the birth of Christianity generally is to be representative of the birth of the age of Pisces, we can certainly see a reduction in its influence in cultures worldwide. This would seem to have a parallel with the rejection of bull worship that Moses encouraged. In other words, I can say that I see in global culture generally a movement away from Pisces which would be consistent with the processional age transitions. But what is the movement towards the new age? If there is a brotherhood that injects information at specific times, can we assume they would be injecting new myths, stories, cultural or political movements, and the like to preserve the transition of Pisces to Aquarius for future generations? I would imagine it wouldn't be some garden variety stories, since I agree with the comments you have made on the show that it's kind of a technology to create stories and myths that are preserved across the ages. I would expect there to be something that is global and possibly religious in nature. Are there good candidates for icons, religious or political figures? Movements or cult leaders, etc., that could represent Aquarius? For myself, I have no candidates. It does seem to me that we should expect to see, if the old stories are indeed processional in nature, the unfolding of a mythology around a new processional age in our time, where it is happening. Would we recognize it as it is emerging? Or do these things get borne out by the purveyors of the technology decades later? The Gospels, for example, were told some 70 years after the fact and not in real time. In other news, I did purchase 4 books from Intertraditions recently. None were the Velikovsky heresies, but I did get 2 other Laird Scranton books as well as the 2 Chris Dunn books you reviewed as a result of your book reviews on Dunn's work and the Laird Scranton interview. Love the show. Thanks for the interesting content. From Kay.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think your last idea is where is kind of, that's the way I look at it. Like the story of Moses coming down and getting mad about the worship of the golden calf is probably a sort of a condensation of a long time period where culture changed. You know what I'm saying? So
yes.
1,000 years from now, historians or the purveyors of the technology, the knowledge, would condense our story and into a simple I don't know what the word is, but that's basically a simple scenario, kind of like that one.
Yeah. Everyone was eating fish, but then the water came and washed them all away.
Yeah.
Very simple story. But yeah, and if you talk to Matheson, he's going to tell you that the entire Moses story and all the rest of the Bible is all star myth.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with real people on the ground doing real things.
Right. which is his opinion. I think that's a part of it. I don't think that's the whole.
Yeah, so it may be those things combined.
Right.
Is what I mean. Like, that's what Matheson will say, like, this is all star myth. But what you're saying is that much later, and what she was asking is much later, these people come along and they take the story and then they incorporate it into existing, already very ancient star mythology.
Yes.
And basically take that, so here's the story, and maybe there's some real people involved and real events or whatever, and we're just going to sort of kind of merge them into these star myths that have been around for freaking 40,000 years.
Yeah. That's cool. And I will say that it's interesting to me as well that, Aquarius is the water bearer or the bringer of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And, we have this burgeoning technology of the instantaneous transfer of information.
Yeah.
All over the globe. We can... I don't know.
We all carry the jar of Aquarius in our pockets.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's all you do. You take it out and it begins to gush forth information. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Gush forth.
Yeah.
Got that mixed up.
Yep.
Okay. This one is from Joseph. It's about episode 182, the contents of the boxes in the Serapeum. He says, "Hello, Snake Bros. I was listening to episode 182, which is your swapcast with Uncharted X. Really enjoyed the podcast, and the Serapeum is a fascinating topic. Some time ago, I was discussing this topic with my brother, and we wondered if the boxes were built to protect their contents from some sort of calamity or cataclysm. And we debated about what contents would be stored in such a container to survive those sorts of circumstances. The subject of my work and study is information security. So I assumed that the boxes would be utilized to store the accumulated knowledge and information that was crucial to the builders. My brother works in healthcare, so he said that the contents would be invaluable medical supplies and seed stores to ensure the health and wellness of the survivors of the calamity or cataclysm. Upon reflection on this conversation with my brother, I recognized a similarity between the boxes in the Serapeum and a concept from the movie Inception. In this movie, some of the dreams portrayed in the movie involve a safe that the dreamer fills with ideas or objects that they want to protect. Similarly, in our imagination, my brother and I populated these boxes with what we imagine would be the most important things for a civilization to protect. So thinking about the boxes in the Serapeum in the context of the first paragraph of this email is a good mental exercise to examine what is important to oneself."
That's cool.
Also, at the end of this email, I include a low-effort meme that I made. It seems relevant to your discussion with Ben. Sahi-Owas.
I love these low-effort memes.
Yeah, all the best, Joseph. And the meme is let's see, what is he saying? When you ask, where are the human remains if the pyramids are tombs? And it's just Zahi going, meh.
Low-effort memes.
Low-effort memes are great.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm trying to.
I have been really reading, I try not too much to read YouTube comments, but with these, I've been going to Ben's page and just reading because, all of his followers are YouTube followers. And so he's got hundreds and hundreds of comments on there. And of course, we have comments on ours. And now Chuck posted the one we did last week on his too. So he's got comments. So I'm basically reading them all. But Ben's got, and there's just tons of people in there asking the same question. What are these for? What do they do with them? And a lot of people think they were seed vaults or they stored books or they stored knowledge or they stored information, or people think that they were tombs for giants. And, the more I think about it, the less I think that these were storage vaults. I don't think it was that simple. It's that, to me, it all comes down to the precision of the interior being more precise than the exterior, and me thinking that what was being stored in there, it doesn't seem like storage, I guess, unless they were storing something that required a precise interior. And that's maybe, but I just can't imagine what that would be. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But it doesn't seem like you just fill it with seeds. Seeds don't need, precisely cut, polished interiors. you know? So the other argument you can make, I guess, is, well, the tools that they were using, that's how they made it. But the outsides of the box don't look like that. So
Right.
I just don't think that that's the case.
Yes, agreed.
They took extra care to do something to the interiors of those boxes that they did not do to the exterior, which to me implies it wasn't somewhere where you're just dumping seeds or scrolls or even stacking books.
So in the lab at the winery, we have volumetric flasks,
Yeah.
and they're all different sizes, but they have a long neck that's very narrow, and on that neck somewhere is a line that's been etched into the glass that tells you a very exact interior volume if you fill it up to that line, right? So you wouldn't really call these storage flasks, but you do put stuff in them, right? But they have to be very precise on the interior. In other words, where that line is made.
That line shows you the exact
precise.
That size is marked on that flask.
Right. Now, if there was a purpose, if you had to have a very specific amount of something, but you couldn't have any headspace, that would require an incredibly precise interior.
Yeah. Okay.
And that kind of suggests that they're not storage devices, but that something is
They're
inside.
science boxes.
Yeah, science box. But that something is to be put in them, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
So-
they are containers.
One example would be, this is a terrible example, but when they're making the atomic bomb, right? They have the very precise amounts
Yes.
of the enriched material, and they are quote unquote stored
Yeah.
in a vessel. The interior of that vessel being extremely precise,
Yeah. That's right.
but it's not a storage vessel. That's not what it really would be called, even though that, yes, there is a material being stored in there.
Another suggestion people have made was like that they were that they remind them of the very high quality sort of interior precision boxes we make now to store radioactive waste.
Yeah, I think I made that point. It's
If they stored something highly radioactive in them, there would be signs of it,
right. Yeah, I'm not
right?
Not
I'm not.
suggesting
Yeah,
about
I'm just
radioactivity, but-
pointing out that you wouldn't have to. In other words, radioactivity, if stored in some vessel over a period of time, will damage visibly, erode,
Yeah. Yes.
right? So they wouldn't be highly polished anymore unless their polish is something that we still don't understand. I mean, in terms of making the material into
Yeah.
something we don't understand.
But it's analogous to our storage of radioactive waste. And I pointed this out when George Howard was on, right?
Yeah,
Because
okay.
he was talking about how the tunnel itself is really rough compared to the boxes.
yes.
And that was my point there. It's like, well, if you went down to where we're storing radioactive waste, you would see this sort of roughly made concrete
Yeah, they
underground
just bored
structure.
down in there with a big boring machine.
and then and shot concrete all over the walls and stuff. And then you get down into where the storage devices are, and they're
then you've got
very
these
precisely
precise
made.
vessels. Yeah, I agree.
But going back to the the Serapeum, my point was that like if it was a machine type of thing, like something that actually did something, right? We're talking about resonance, or if it was in any way, Dunn-esque.
Yeah,
The interior could be very precisely made to contain, if the watcher was here, he would say mercury
yeah.
for
Spinning.
some purpose of making cool stuff.
I also saw people suggesting that the reason the alcoves are staggered was because of some kind of resonance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, Ben was pointing out that like each one of these boxes had very precisely made, highly polished granite, quote unquote, false door things on either side of them. They look, Egyptologists call them false doors, but basically it's just these in particular would be like a
Square or a rectangular slab.
a big thick slab of granite. I mean, the
Right.
one we saw that he showed us that was broken was thick.
Yeah, very thick.
So this big thick slab of granite, and on one face it's got a series of rectangles cut into it. Each one is inside the next one and deeper cut. And there's 3 or 4 of them, so it kind of gives you this sort of wormhole, effect. If it's like looking down a hallway, it's even though it's a relatively flat surface.
It's a diffuser.
Each one insets down just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But it leaves these lines where you can, it gives you this 3D effect, which is why they call them false doors. But you got one of those on either side, and it's like this reflective dish.
Yeah. Auditoriums are built the same way, right?
Yeah.
They keep stepping down and down and down to the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they're not that pronounced, they don't go that deep, but still it's
a similar.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were set in there, so they're made in the same material, the boxes.
Like a focusing device.
Yeah,
or
and it's like these 2 focusing dishes that are set on either side of the thing in these alcoves, and the alcoves themselves are much more well cut than the tunnels.
Yes.
So I was thinking about how you were saying, well, the fact that they were scooping cracks out of these boxes on the outside suggests that they expected them to continue to vibrate, and those cracks would therefore continue to expand, like the whole symbol thing, like you drill the symbol.
Right.
So yeah, I started to imagine, the box is there and it's freaking humming with whatever's inside of it. And then you've got these reflector plates on either side that are, blocking the other alcoves from receiving that.
Oh yeah, that's.
I don't know. It's like those are shields.
Yeah. They maybe are reflecting a specific wavelength.
Yeah, because you don't want the wavelengths to start crossing over each other and hitting the other boxes and causing some kind of catastrophic frickin'
something
explosion thingy, massive meltdown. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah, they could have been reflective plates to contain this vibration, or maybe to reflect it back into the box to make it keep going. Something, or both.
Resonator.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Very interesting. Don't know.
But I do like the fact that I like the idea that if you go with the idea that there were storage containers, then you can use that as a test to see what's the most important thing to that person. Like, what do you think they would have stored in them? And they'll name off whatever they think is the most important. And in
comic books.
Yeah, comic books, man. Video games. All right, let's take a break.
Yep.
We're way over here.
Snakes! Back, ladies and gentlemen, the Super Snake Bros Extravaganza, episode 184, between Swapcasts, listener communications and commentary, and possibly some Shamir. How many more emails you got?
Some.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from Peter. Now, let me get my mic up here. From Peter, and he says, this is called Idea About the Scoop Marks. Snacks! I am watching number 182, the Swapcast with Uncharted X. I can't help but see the scoops as nothing less than tuning the boxes. The insides have to remain precise for whatever is inside them. Many Arks of the Covenant, one in each box, which have been taken away in antiquity.
Ah, good idea.
Once closed, they needed to be tuned to resonate at some particular frequency. The reason you will see some with scoops and some without is because the exterior of the boxes are all a bit different, requiring some to be tuned while others were already resonating properly. I see this whole complex as a power plant. What do you think? Keep up the curiosity. From Peter.
Yeah, I like the power plant idea and the tuning idea. When we go there, I'm going to bring I don't know if I'll have an actual hardware tuner, tone generator, or just my phone and my voice.
Yeah.
But the idea was to go in every box, stick my head down in there, and hum until I find the fundamental.
Yeah.
Record it, or hold my phone in there with the tuner on to see what the frequency is.
Now, will that change depending, because all the lids are a little bit different?
Yeah, it might. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because the box would do it with a lid or without.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Because it's just like, it may be a different note. It's most likely would be a different note depending on the opening. Just like you would think of like a flute.
Flute, yeah.
So when you have all the valves of the flute shut, that would be like the deepest box because the end of the flute is still open.
Yeah.
But when you let a finger off of a valve somewhere within, that changes the length of the column.
Of the column, yeah.
And so your wavelength changes. So yeah, I think also if you like with this ocarina, I have an ocarina. So it is
the Ocarina of Time.
It is the Ocarina of Time, and it has a very, precise interior, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And there's 6 holes, 7. There's the hole you blow in, and then there's the whistle hole.
Yep.
And then there's 5 valves for you to put your fingers on. So when you have them all closed, and then as you open them up, it goes higher.
Yeah.
But if you start to close your finger over a hole, and it's like, so I'm going to slide my finger over one of the holes real slow.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that will happen. But see, that's a different situation because it's actually air passing
Through the whistle.
and on the whistle, the air is going above the whistle
and below it.
The whistle's like a sharp edge. So it goes above it until it gets pressurized.
Yeah.
And the pressure pushes the air below it.
Yeah.
And then that causes a vacuum to form above, which then draws the air back to the top. So you get this fluctuation.
Yeah,
where
it's
the air's
flapping
going,
like a reed would on a reed instrument. Yeah.
It's going above and below and above and below. And that's what's giving you your resonance, right?
Whereas if you were just humming into that interior space,
it's going to be different.
It's different.
And I don't know. I'd have to look. I should do more research to find out.
Yeah.
I have to look into that and help.
And
maybe get some Snake Force people to help me figure out how that will affect it.
Yeah. And I also think that because he's talking about, they're cutting these scoops out to tune the boxes. Well, it's like the interior
has no
sound is not going to be affected by cutting scoops out of the exterior of the box.
The interior volume, but the resonance of the resonance of the box
material
itself
will change. Yeah. So that would be two different
things.
Yeah.
So
and that's the other thing. I started to think about this, we were talking about these boxes vibrating, and I'm thinking about those lids. And unless they all have lips, you don't want them vibrating too much because the lid will eventually work its way. It'll walk off the box.
Unless okay, you just said that. Yeah, they have the lips.
Yeah. And we know that giant one stuck in the corner has a lip because we were able to see it with his.
Yeah.
But do all the other lids have lips, or do they just sit flat?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if they sit flat, then they weren't vibrating it.
Unless they were rung together.
Okay. They could have been rung.
Which is why pry bars are not going to work. You have to slide it off.
Yeah.
You can't pry it up. It's like the Johnson blocks, right? You can't just pull them apart. You have to slide them away from each other.
Yeah. Yep. Many questions.
Yes. But the point is, what I'm interested in, one of the things I'm interested in is determining the dimensions of the interior of the boxes. So if I'm not allowed to get inside every box with a tape measure.
And you can't even do that with all of them because the opening is too small.
Yeah, the next best thing is to hum into the box. And then you'll get basically a pretty decent idea of the resonant frequency of it based on the volume, the amplitude returning back, the feedback loop.
Yeah.
Created from the standing waves inside the box. And so yes, how big the gap is in the lid, is that going to change the pitch? I don't know. But if it doesn't, then this would be a
great way to test the insides of the boxes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
wouldn't that be very interesting if all the different boxes had
the same interiors? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would make,
or maybe there would be a set.
Yeah.
Of sizes,
or they would have very specific tunings that would give us some kind of,
no matter what,
It's going to be
The
interesting.
information will be interesting, right? Because it's going to be a clue.
Yeah. And the other question is has anybody ever gone in there, like archaeologists or whatever, and used lasers or something to get because you can't get in there, but
They only analyzed the contents of the
which
boxes.
they had none. So
That's right.
what kind of air came out of this box?
Which they probably did not test.
Right.
On the only one that wasn't open.
Right.
But that could have been a clue as well.
Yeah.
If it was some inert gas,
Right.
that would have been really interesting. We'll never know.
Yeah. And we know it wasn't a volatile one because he used dynamite. So it must have been inert or just regular atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This one is from, I think it's,
Unless he used not enough dynamite.
yeah.
But it blew open the box anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that was a particularly powerful stick of dynamite.
Yeah. Wow. Wasn't expecting that dynamite to be quite that strong. Yeah. Or I just have to wonder. I guess they probably all left. I mean, surely they weren't standing there when they set it off, right?
Yeah.
But if it had been sitting there closed for 10,000 years, the air in there would have been bad. It could have killed you.
Yeah.
Like opening up a mine or whatever that's been sealed off. You got to be really careful. So
For some reason, that reminded me of Spy versus Spy. Bring back Spy versus Spy.
Yeah.
I will kick your ass. Remember that game?
did you used to win at that all the time?
I don't think so. But you remember that game?
I remember playing that. Yeah.
That was a great game.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways.
Yeah. We had the Arctic version.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the only one we had. And the whole point was to get to the rocket before the other guy to leave or
That's
something.
right,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just say this is from G. He says that's called "In the Dark Northern Winter of 1930, an entire village filled with men, women, and children vanished." That's the title. He says, "Thank you for the great work, guys. Love the show. I recently read this about an Inuit community, nomadic as they were, seeming to leave all their belongings behind and head off. No species on Earth would survive with that mentality. They were the smartest of the North to live in such conditions with relative ease. If it wasn't for them, I may not be typing this, LOL. I have spent much time in the North with the Innu and the Inuit and never once heard this story. My curiosity is, has there been other reports of missing people en masse? I will call it with similar evidence. If you have covered it on a previous podcast, I'm sorry I haven't reached it yet, but your book reports I listened to more than once and they are good stuff. Interviews are A1, stick with it. One of my farewells is, may your footprints be long upon the earth. And being a snake, you see the dilemma. How about this? May the skeptics choke on your shedded skin of knowledge. Needs some work. Anyway, I don't know. Have at it, listeners. Snake Brother Rock. And yeah, so what he's talking about is, and I have read this story, and you'll find it's one of those stories where you can go and read the story and you can find people who are trying to say, did this really happen? And then there's tons of skeptic places that are like, this is bullshit. It didn't happen. But yeah, he gives a basic synopsis of it here. Canadian winter of 1930, battling falling snow and the biting cold, a weary fur trapper, Joe LaBelle, went in search of a safe haven. When he came to the Inuit village of Lake Anjikuni, all was eerily silent. Where in previous visits he had enjoyed the warmth and company of a busy and bustling community, now there was only an empty village, and upon investigation he found fires still burning, food stocks intact, and the villagers' belongings in place.
Yeah, I remember,
that story. Yeah.
Yep.
And there were other things that he found. Their rifles, all of their sled dogs were there, and most of them were dead. And then another part of the story that this is part of what makes people think it's crap is that the nearby area where they buried their dead, the graves had been exhumed or something. Yeah. So it's like people are like, whatever, this is some kind of crazy apocalyptic legend. But yeah, I don't know if it's true or not. Supposedly he fled in fear, eventually got the some Canadian authorities to go investigate, and yeah, they found an empty village where previously there had been people. So, but yeah, I can't tell you any more than that. Did it really happen? I have no idea. But it is a weird story. But it's interesting. He says he's lived among them. Yeah, so you should ask them. Like,
Well, I thought that's what he said. Nobody.
yeah, he says he's never heard it. He says, I have spent much time in the north with the Innu and the Inuit and never once heard this story. So that may be, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's evidence that it didn't happen or that may be something they don't talk about. But yeah, it's a weird story. But, you know, you read any, like, there's plenty of places where you can go and find people proving, quote unquote, that this isn't real.
Yeah.
That there's no actual reports, and you know there was no village there, and this guy that supposedly reported it didn't actually exist, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm not to say. Okay.
Such is the nature of these tales.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Birch. He says, "Hey brothers, did y'all get the box I sent you? I was worried that the beers exploded en route."
Nope. They exploded in the cube when we opened it.
right.
No, they didn't explode. It was good.
Yeah.
He probably heard it by now, huh?
Yeah, maybe. Well, he says he's enjoying the Uncharted series, so he must be skipping stuff.
Yeah. Skipper. Yeah, man. We drank those beers on the show.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. It was awesome. All of it.
Yeah, the pipe tool, all that stuff. And the smokes.
And Lars earring.
Yeah.
It was just,
He says,
and the medallions, like, dang, that was a really
Yeah.
awesome, buddy.
He says, I am enjoying the Uncharted series. Stasis boxes? Any check on the resonant frequency of the insides of these boxes?
Working on it.
What wavelength is sustained by the boxes? Are they different for each box? It's crazy. It does seem to be a way to preserve something or someone until danger passes. Best, Birch.
Yep. Very interesting stuff. An enigma.
Yeah. Okay.
And one where future data is possible,
That's right.
which is one of the reasons why I latch on to the. I just, yeah, it gives me hope.
More research can be done.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's easy to see it. It's not like, it's also not like a, you know, where you're like, well, what else can we do to figure this out?
Yeah.
It's like so little attention has been paid to this place that you can come up with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have the bribes to be able to get it done? No, that's
Yeah. I just need Yusuf.
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. This one is. Yeah. Okay. This is from Nelson, who's also in the Discord. He says, question for you both and Ben. Hi, Russ, Kyle, and Ben. I am fully convinced that the megalithic structures in Egypt were created using more advanced technology than what the standard model says was available. But to put on my SCRP glasses, alternative histories often discount the possibility that the pyramids, for example, were built at the time that standard history says, but using technology that was kept secret from the masses. Now, I've heard so many times that there is absolutely no evidence that the Great Pyramids of Giza were built by Cheops or Khephren, except for a bit of graffiti. But according to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, the Egyptian priests told him that they were built by Cheops and Khephren. Not only that, but these pharaohs were wicked, inhumanely using the Egyptian population like slaves in order to complete each pyramid. And these pharaohs were reportedly so hated that many Egyptians claimed others had built those pyramids. So to me, this account of Herodotus has extra validity because even though Khephren and Cheops are said to be evil, they are nevertheless given credit for the buildings of these pyramids, which as construction feats are nevertheless amazing. That's my current view anyway, even though I haven't looked into it too deeply. What are your thoughts on this? Thanks, Nelson.
What do you say? I want to know what your thoughts are.
I mean, it's possible that the question of the building of the pyramids is, to me, so open because we have so little evidence of who actually built them.
Yeah. But weren't you telling me too that Herodotus got a bunch of stuff wrong?
Yeah. Well, okay. So what I see when I read Herodotus' stuff is him saying, well, here's what I was told about this. And here's what I was told about that. Or I was told these 3 different things about this. You know? So he doesn't seem to be saying, here's the truth. He just says, here's what these priests told me in Memphis. You know, here's what I heard from these other priests of the temple of Amun in this place. And then I went to the temple of Sobek and heard this, you know, whatever. And the
why should it be any different today? You know, from today. I mean, if you go to the pyramid, they're going to tell you who built it.
Yeah, that's right. And Herodotus was 450-ish BC, which would put him around 2,000 years post Khufu.
Yeah, so they're just going to tell you what they've figured out.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, we do think, you know, like, so then you have to look at the Atlantis story with Plato. Like, he's got the same thing happening in his story. You know, Solon shows up, and these priests are supposedly telling him a story that's 8,000 or 9,000 years old.
Right.
And we're like, sure, you know, totally that could be true. So, do we hold ourselves to the same standard? You know?
No. We've got...
Of course not.
No way, man. Double standards all the way. It's totally acceptable these days.
Yeah. And one of the things Herodotus says, for example, is that the Great Pyramid is 800 feet on a side and is the same tall.
Yeah.
Which is totally wrong. Now, it's not exactly clear when you read the, you know, is he saying the priest told him that, or is he just like rattling that off? Because the sides are around, I mean, they're not 800 feet, but they're, you know, close, 700 and something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely not 800 feet tall. So it's weird. It's like, were the priests trolling him? Oh, yeah, man. Thing's as tall as it is wide. And everybody hated the guy that built it, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know what to think about it. Herodotus was an interesting guy. And the other thing that, you know, speaking of double standards, mainstream archaeology has total double standards when it comes to Herodotus. He is gospel on the things that they want, and he's completely full of shit on the stuff they don't.
Right.
You know? So...
Yeah, but I mean, that's just a lot of things that you pick any person. Well, a lot of stuff they say is true. Mm-hmm. Everything else is total BS.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But it's like Manetho is treated the same way, and Josephus, you know, these historians, Pliny, you know, you read Pliny, you can't read Pliny anymore because all of his stuff is gone, but you can read commentary about his stuff. That's how we have evidence of it's secondary and third hand, you know, about Pliny, because Pliny set out to basically like write an encyclopedia of all knowledge. And some of the stuff that's in there, you're just like, okay, dude, what? You know? But I think he was supposed to have died at the explosion of Vesuvius, you know? And he was a natural philosopher. And yes, so Pliny's encyclopedia is basically... It's got interesting stuff in it, but most of it's bullshit, you know. But it isn't. But the thing is that Pliny didn't think it was bullshit, or he was like, "Here's what I've been told," because obviously he couldn't go everywhere,
right?
So yeah, I don't know, but to me, and this comes down to basically personal opinion. But on the question of the pyramids, it seems to me more likely that they are a product of an older lost civilization that had technology than that a much more recent civilization had hidden technology that they used hundreds of thousands of people to build, but still managed to hide the technology.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, the idea that, well, everybody hated them because it was so much work. And so all evidence of the building was destroyed or names were changed. Well, the names weren't changed, you know, like, I don't know. It seems to me more likely that if there wasn't a breakaway civilization during Egypt that had hidden technology, it seems more likely that there was just a much older advanced civilization, because that's also in the myths all over the world.
Right.
And it seems to be what the Egyptians themselves say, that they are a legacy of a much more ancient, much more advanced civilization. Now, could there have been, for example, in the Old Kingdom, an elite that had managed to recover some of the knowledge of that much more older civilization? Yes. And would they qualify?
And kept it hidden.
Yeah, and would they qualify as and maybe used it as magic?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, playing the God Gambit because
Yeah.
like if you look at how the pharaohs were treated, they were supposed to be they were the avatar of
Yeah.
gods, you know. But then you're like, well, what did they really mean by gods? And they meant aspects of nature. So it's like the pharaoh was not God like we think of him now, but he's some personification of the natural world.
Yeah.
You know, and he's supposed to go through some initiate process, but you can easily see how that would become corrupted. And then suddenly they're just like, yes, I am the personification of Ra. You know, you should do everything that I want. And then, yeah, if they had little bits of tech left over, they could use it to, or even not tech, but just little bits of knowledge, like how to make static electricity.
Yeah.
And sort of build it up. And then you can make a nice arc and scare everybody in the temple and make them think that, you know, the gods are there with you and at your command or something. Yes, I can believe that. But did they have giant machines that they could use to build the pyramids? Or even small ones? I don't know. It just seems to me more likely that they're a product of a much older civilization. And I think Ben agrees with us on that. That seems to be his idea. I think this seems to be what Yusuf implies in a lot of the stuff he's talking about too, but I don't know what Yusuf thinks about a builder culture versus dynastic Egypt. I haven't talked to Ben about that. So, but all good questions and worth looking at both. Yes, I do think it's possible that the pyramids, maybe not the Serapeum boxes and some other anomalous artifacts, but maybe the pyramids themselves. And I lean in the direction that the pyramids were built in stages. Mm-hmm. And so some of them may be Old Kingdom dynastic construction. But I just think it's much more likely that all of the evidence of construction we see in the Old Kingdom and the textual references to this and even Herodotus's accounts with the priests is that what was happening then was some kind of reclamation slash, what's the word for it? Renaming project. Because we know that, you know, that writing your name on something you didn't build was a time-honored tradition in Egypt, at least in the later kingdoms.
Yeah, it wasn't been talking about Ramses or whatever.
Yeah.
Going and
the reason
flaming.
he's called Ramses the Great is because for a long time, modern people thought he basically built almost everything in Egypt. But eventually they figured out that no, he just wrote his name on everything there.
Yeah.
You know, and those are both exaggerations. They didn't think he built everything, and he didn't write his name on everything. But there was enough stuff to where they thought, wow, Ramses did all this stuff. But it turns out that he actually just not stole it, but, you know, just renamed it after himself.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, did the final touches in completing things on some project that a predecessor had done and then wrote his name over that guy's name. Like, I did this now, you know, it's mine.
Yeah.
I put in the last 3 blocks. I built it.
Yeah.
And there's evidence for this in the fact that, you know, the plaster had been put up, and then they had carved the cartouche of some other pharaoh's name in there, and Ramses had it replastered and his name carved into it. Mm-hmm. And then that plaster starts to sort of fall apart, and then suddenly you can see both sets of hieroglyphs overlaid with each other.
Yeah.
You know, there's a name for that. I can't remember right now, but they have a specific, it happens so often in Egypt that there's a specific word for multiple layers of hieroglyphs being cut into each other, and then all the plaster falling off, and you can see this weird, you know, jumbled glyph. And I think that's what the UFO tank and helicopter thing are supposed to be. There's a word for it, but yeah, I just, to me, I think, okay, if you have nothing but the tools that we see in the archaeological record, which are basically copper chisels, diorite pounding stones, using wood sleds and ropes, and nothing but manpower, I can see a massive Giza reclamation project taking 20 years and pissing off a lot of people and being very hard work for a bunch of people who are farmers. They're not stone carvers, because you know, you've got farmers on the Nile, and then there's a couple of months out of every year where the Nile floods, and this is the idea that that's when all the work showed up, because they couldn't farm anymore because their farms were underwater. So then they all show up and start dragging rocks around for the pharaoh.
Yeah.
So yes, 20 years of that. Every couple of months out of every year, because the rest of the time the farmers got to go back to their farms to make food for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? So they are not working the whole time. So you may have scattered workforces on the plateau for the entire year. But farmers need to be farming their fields, and the vast majority of people along the Nile were farmers and priests and, other things. But everybody was basically had little farms, and they're making food. So you need the farmers doing that so that you have enough food to survive. And then during the Nile flood, the farmers can all come help you drag rocks, but they're not skilled masons. And you can,
they might be skilled. Like some of them might be skilled masons.
Yeah,
but that's not their general occupation.
Right. They might, some of them might be skilled masons, but they were skilled farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
And they farmed in marshes. They, there's not a whole lot of, I doubt they built a lot of stone stuff. They built wood things, and they may have cut little canals.
They were for sure good builders.
Yeah.
All of
them, they were probably good
probably.
Builders, and they were good at using animals to do stuff. But you can't say, come over here and here's this incredibly advanced tool, build the pyramid. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that now. Some guy that doesn't build stuff, or even if he does, walks into a shop, you don't hand him some advanced tool and let him start building shit. He has to learn how to use it. And I don't know. So
but I think that's a good idea. Like this massive restoration project.
Yeah. Because they found what they call work villages, the remnants of work villages in Giza, and I'm just like, and they're saying the workers were treated very well. They had very nice places to live and everything. So, they're kind of, the mainstream is pushing this idea that these people that built these pyramids weren't slaves. I kind of agree with that. Mm-hmm. Slave labor is not going to make really awesomely precise buildings. Like maybe, I guess, if you have a couple of people that know what they're doing, but I don't know, We know there were Johnsons on the job. You can see the evidence.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think it comes down to personal opinion because there's so little evidence either way.
Yeah, I just think that both the precision work, the obvious differences in masonry style or architectural style, and the incorporation of these mathematical the geometrical thing, what am I trying to, not constants, but
like sacred geometry and stuff.
Yeah, principles that are incorporated into the structures is that really, to me, kind of pushes it back, to something that's not really understood. All those things.
Yeah.
But
his argument is that there was some secret society that had all that information.
Yeah, but I agree with your point about it's more likely to me that it was just further back in antiquity than coexisting at the same time and being hidden.
Right. But
that there's no evidence of it. The thing that makes me I think explains that there's no evidence for the machines is that it was just much older.
Yeah.
And so the evidence has been gone or reused or melted down or whatever.
Yeah.
Or just completely corroded.
Yeah, that's right. I thought of that too, that the tools should still be around unless it was much older. But, again, if they were like kept in secret, then maybe somebody's still doing that. That's, 2000 BC is not too long ago for somebody for that secret society to still be around and still keeping that stuff secret.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I also am fully aware that my bias is that I want it to be older. So yes, I can make all kinds of arguments that it's older. So I'm just saying it's possible.
It's kind of hard to explain how you would build something like that, and it's so visible.
Yeah.
With some secret technology, and people not be writing about it.
Right.
And walking by, looking at it, and saying, "Wow, what are they doing that with?"
Yeah. You can't keep it secret if you're using it to build that thing. And no matter what kind of tools you had, you needed millions of them, or thousands at least, or hundreds, or if you had giant saws, like at least dozens. The project is enormous. So.
And it's not just in Egypt. It's all over the world that this kind of stuff was going on. And all over the world, we find the same types of things, that there were later cultures that repurposed them. It's more obvious in other places because there have been so much building in this same area. And people were digging and excavating and building, and it's all jumbled up.
Yeah.
But in South America, for example, with the Inca, it's really clear the differences, right? And they even have the names of the 3 different types of masonry, and they're
Unan, Hanan, and Ura, or something like that. Yeah.
Hanan Pacha, Uran Pacha, and,
and
something around. I don't remember them all.
Yeah.
But Pumapunku.
Yeah.
There's just so much, and the building style being similar to this really old style of building in Egypt is also suggestive.
Yeah.
That these were.
This was a global civilization.
Yeah. That these.
Or at least that they had global reach.
Yeah, that the styles were known about. In other words, like if there were a global civilization, maybe not just one culture, but multiple cultures that were in contact with each other, that noticed each other's artwork and architecture, learned from each other's astronomy and other sciences, and incorporated them into their own cultures. So yes, you in one place you see that it's distinct, but it also has an incredible similarity to this other place.
Yeah.
And they're both underneath all of the other stuff that we actually have historical records for, is the way I look at it. It's that's a big part of the clue. It's not looking at Egypt in isolation.
Yeah. Yeah, so somebody in Egypt was like looking at Peru and they're like, hey, I need your giant box nub builder guy.
Yeah. I'm digging a cave to put cool boxes in. I need the nubbing machine.
All right, let's take a break. Great emails and questions.
Yes.